simple question. What is your passion? What do you want to do? What is it that you want to do for the rest of your life? You know, I love being a professor, but I also like to be challenged. And when I had the opportunity 6 years ago to actually purchase this club, and I went to the bank and sat in front of the loan officer and the vice president and had to do my whole spiel, do my pro forma, show my 5-year plan, I realized at that time I wanted to do more than just be a professor. I wanted to get, down in the trenches like I was when I was an undergrad, but I wanted to run it. I wanted the ball, okay? Number one, have a plan. Sit down and just start writing out, even if it's your goals or your dreams, what is it that you would really like to do? And think big. So do a personal SWOT analysis. What are the needs? What is it? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Okay? Write that down. And the thing is, sometimes people will say, athletes will come to me, I want to be an Olympic gold medalist. And I'll be like, well, it's not that easy. I think business is easier than Olympic, competition, because there's a genetic factor. In business, if you're smart, you're wise, and you actually have a plan, you could be successful. Create your own opportunities. This is one of the main things, is that sometimes I would get knocked down, but I'd get right back up. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. My favorite quote, okay? So if for some reason something doesn't go your way, don't just say, man, that's a bad break. Try to figure out why you actually had that bad break. What is it that caused it? Maybe it was part of your plan, and the plan didn't have the steps necessary to actually adjust for the mistake that you made. Invest your personal time in becoming a lifelong learner. The other day I had the pleasure to sit in and hear Nick Winkelman speak. And I've known Nick for several years now, and I was so proud to watch him because I've seen him grow as a young professional. But you know what? I learned that day. I still try to learn every single day. I try to read something new. I try to find something out because I never know everything. No one knows everything. The day you do is the day you could levitate off this, podium, the stage, and you hear the heavenly music. Oh, that isn't happening. No one knows everything, so you constantly have to keep on learning. That's what I love about the Nsca. I know that I can come here and I can get with colleagues and peers and meet new people and learn something from, a trainer that's an undergraduate. They may have a creative idea, and then I learn from it. I bring it back, and then I try to implement it. Execute your plan, right? So when you think about it, put your plan into play, list everything out, and then execute it. Try not to deviate. Try to stick to your guns, but you will have to improvise. So, number one, from an academic standpoint now, find out what your professional interests are. Is it personal training, strength and conditioning, coaching, sports nutrition, physical therapy, athletic training, ex-phys, performance phys, special pops, biomechanics, chiropractic, or this list could go on and on. But find out what it is that you want to do. And you know what? It's not even if you're a college student, because when we hear college student, what age range do you think about? What do you think? 20 to 24, 18 to 24, right? I had a student this past year in my classes, 50 years old, older than I am, and he's going to go to physical therapy school. He had an actual plan. He executed his plan by coming back to school, and now he's going to go on. Changed his career. Already has kids, everything. I respect that guy so much for doing that. All right, undergraduate degree is your foundational knowledge. This is where you basically have, the way that I like to use an analogy, I use analogies, you have a very small toolbox. Pack that joker. Put in so many tools in that box, so you're forced to go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and then you have to buy a bigger box, okay? With that, that's your foundation, that's everything. I still, to this day, go all the way back to my education for my undergraduate and Dr. Tony Catarizano, who was my mentor at Furman University. Then, when you decide, hey, I want to take that next step, I want more, start looking at master's programs, okay? That's going to actually take you up to a mastery level. Then, if you get the bug and you get bit and you're like, you know what? I might want to go into academia. Or you might want to open your own business and be considered an expert in your field, and you feel that you have to have a doctorate to do that. I don't think you necessarily have to. It's just, I was kind of a hybrid. And I think the biggest thing with the doctoral degree that I've seen in my career is, and it's strange, isn't that term exactly what the Nsca stands for? It's where you bridge that gap between science and application. Now you have a mastery of your cognitive foundation, you have the educational background, and now you apply it. You know why you do what you do when you're training a client, training an athlete, training a special pop. All right, how many of you are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy? Raise your hand. If you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, raise your hand. All right, so cognitive psychologists, educational psychologists came up with this strategy, and then it's been modified. But if you look at it, the foundation is like the undergraduate degree, right? Remembering and understanding, very basic. Most people can do this. Then as you move up, now we get into applying and analyzing. It gets more complex. Critical thinking starts to play a major role in what you do. How many of you did go to Nick Winkelman's actual talk? Did you remember the video that he showed you? The invisible gorilla? How many of you got the answers right? If you did, you're probably delving into that second dimension where you are a decent critical thinker. Well, then when you want to go to the top of the mountain, now you start to evaluate and create. What is evaluate and create? When you think of that or hear those terms, the first thing that comes to my mind is periodization, right? Three-dimensional thinking. If I have an athlete and I'm going to train them in the actual pool, on the court, on the field, but then I'm also going to design the strength and conditioning, I'm also going to control their sports nutrition, I'm also going to work on the recovery and regeneration. That's what I call three-dimensional thought. You have to be a good critical thinker. All right, so if you're looking to enhance your education, invest in it. Do research. Don't just pick a school like Chad the other day. Dr. Kirk came up and talked about, oh, I wanted to go to North Carolina, Chapel Hill because Michael Jordan went there. You know, don't pick the school that way. Actually do some investigation. Treat it like you're going to open a business or you're buying a house. It's a major investment, okay? Go in and look. Look at the program of study. Learn about the specific courses that are going to be within that major. Look at the faculty. What are their reputation as educators? What's the research agenda? Do you want to go into research? If you are going to go into research, then you want to make sure it's something that you have an interest in. Length of the program. You know, traditional undergraduate programs are 4 years. We actually changed our program. You could still go through it for 4 years, but now you can make it through our undergrad in 3 years. Why? Because our Board of Regents in the state of Georgia said you need to start being creative. When I went to Georgia College 17 years ago, as an assistant professor, we had 7 students in our program. We now have in excess of 500 students in our program. We did this because it gave students more options, saved them money, but still gave them a sound, academic challenge. Master's programs, they'll usually range anywhere from 18 months all the way up to 36 months. If you have any inkling to think that, you know what, I want to go on and get my doctorate, then do a thesis. When students come in my office, I say, is there any chance, a 10% chance, that you'd want to go on and get your EDD or your PhD? And if they say, yeah, maybe, I'm saying you don't have an option, you're doing a thesis, okay? And then doctoral programs usually are going to last 3 to 5 years. I've seen people sometimes, Spread it out to 7 years. All right, so another thing besides the program length is look at the type of program. Look at a traditional program where you're in the classroom or online. There are a lot of good online options, but there's one thing. Do you get to sit down in front of that professor and actually have a discussion with them? One-on-one. Those are the things. If you learn that way the best, and you have to be, or a kinesthetic learner, then I would look more towards a traditional program. If you already have a 60-hour-a-week job, it may not be feasible for you, unless you want to do like that student that I had, totally changed everything and went back to school. Thesis versus non-thesis. If you're going to go into the field, you may not need to do the thesis, but if there's any chance of going on further, do a thesis. Look at the applied components and also the basic knowledge. Look for programs. If you want to get more hands-on experience, lean more towards those programs. Get your hands dirty. In the doctoral degree, again, Chad did a great job the other day with his presentation about, advancing your career in academia. Well, do you want to be at a teaching institution or do you want to be at a research institution? Well, I'll tell you right now, if I was at a Doc 1 research institution, which is what I started at, I wouldn't be able to own my own business. I'm staying where I am. I enjoy teaching, but I still have to do research, publication a year, but then it does allow me to also own my business, okay? So take that into consideration of what you want to do in the long term. Look for GA options, because that'll help you. Then you don't have to take out a loan maybe. Maybe it'll help you with that financial burden. That way you don't have a $60,000 loan that you have to pay off. Dissertation options. This one, my biggest advice to students that do go on to their PhD or EDD is look at a program and something that you're interested in and look for multiple faculty, not just one faculty. Because you may get there and they may already have several grad students that are already studying under them, have their GA or TA positions, and then you don't get to interact with them as much, just in the classroom. So look at that very closely. All right, so now let's move to the step. Let's say I do want to go back. I do want to advance my education. One way you could start is go to Nsca as a resource and look at the ERP program. Look at that list of schools online and then contact those schools. Go online, look at their curriculum, look at their actual faculty, look to see, and if you can take a trip, that's what I would really do. Go visit the faculty members. So there's the personal training program, strength and conditioning program, and the graduate studies program. It'll be a good guide. If it's undergraduate that you're looking at, look at the coursework. Here's an example of the courses you should see in those undergraduate degrees. If you don't, you may want to think twice about it. These are guidelines that both the ERP has and also ACSM has. Next. Graduate coursework. So look at the courses. Everybody's going to have the fundamental science classes at the graduate level. But if you want to go into strength and conditioning, my key thing is look at the methods courses. Do they have them? We designed our graduate program with methods courses in mind. 2 methods courses. A methods 1 that's traditional and non-traditional resistance training. We do everything from Olympic lifting, powerlifting, all the way down to battling ropes, Indian clubs, sandbags, and kettlebells. And then we also have a speed and agility, 15-week course, all speed and agility plyometrics. We do video analysis, do kinematic analysis of running gait, running start for a combine and for track. Look at an advanced program design, a periodization class. Do they have something that's beyond what your scope is now? Something that's going to challenge you. We also have sports nutrition, advanced sports nutrition, sports psych, and all of them are going to have research classes. We have 2 research classes within our curriculum. All right, if you go to a doctoral program here, The biggest thing is, like I said earlier, look at the area of expertise of the faculty. What is it that you want to study? Look at specific research agendas, and sometimes I tell students, have a research agenda before you go into your doctoral program. I knew that I wanted to be a performance physiologist when I was in my master's program at the University of Alabama. So I already knew that that's what I wanted to go into when I worked on my PhD. Another thing is if you do go visit, this is just like when people, if they come to join our health club, they want to talk to other members. Talk to students that are in the program because they're going to be a better source than the actual faculty members on the campus. They're going to tell you what it's really like because they're the ones actually doing it. All right, and I mentioned before, look at the assistantships. Save you a lot of money. Another area that I think is very important is the volunteer experience. 14 years ago, I volunteered on a committee and actually for the Nsca, and I've been involved ever since. What's ironic about this is, one time when I sat down for my annual evaluation with my department chair, I was a member of 3 different organizations. I was a young professor. I wanted to actually do everything I could to help people and be involved. Well, then my department chair sat down one time and said, you know what, Mike, you need to focus now. You need to actually pick one organization and you want to get involved. Embed yourself, immerse yourself in that organization. And I chose the Nsca. And it was the best choice for me. So these are all examples of different committees, groups that you can get involved in with the Nsca. The number one thing is before you even do it, read the volunteer handbook. But what you want to do is get in there and find out what's going to be expected of you. And I've made some of the best contacts in my career. I have lifelong friends now. I can go through a list of people that have made a tremendous effect on my career, and because they're colleagues and peers, all through the Nsca. All right, what about advanced certifications? How many of you have advanced certifications? So like the CSCS, maybe even FMS, maybe CES, maybe some of the other ones. Show of hands, raise your hand. So a lot of you are already doing this, but why do you do it? Why do you do it? Do you do it just so you have a list of initials behind your actual name? No. The main reason you're doing it is you should do it from a continuing education perspective. I'm going to get a certification this Sunday. I'm going to leave here, drive to California and do a barefoot training certification. Because I want to see, I'm intrigued by it. Even at my level, I'm still looking and seeking out knowledge. One, the advanced certifications can also help you in obtaining a job. As I mentioned earlier about my facility, we don't hire you if you don't have one of those big 3 certifications. And now we're just about to roll out our performance training program. My personal trainers that are already hired in my facility aren't going to be able to train in that program because we've put the level that you must have the CSCS to train in that performance program. So even the trainers that I've already hired are going to have to go back and get another certification. I want that advanced qualification. It'll help you professionally. Another thing that I do is a reading list. Create yourself a reading list. How many of you read 2 new books a year that are associated with performance training? Okay. Now, you could talk about books like Talent Code, Blink. Yes, I've read those books. Great books. And they do help you in the strength and conditioning side, but I'm talking about the performance side of it. This might be a biochemistry book that you pick up. If you're weak in bioenergetics, go back and understand it. When I designed programs for Olympic athletes, everything I did, there was a reason why I did it, and my mentor at Alabama, Dr. Phil Bishop, is the one that taught me that. Another thing I feel like when you train athletes is you can borrow information. I think Mark Verstegen said something once. If he uses something, he'll give you credit the first time. The second time, he might give you credit. Third time, it's his. The point here is If you want to be a leader, then you have to have that critical thinking process behind you so you can design things that make you a leader. If you do what everybody else does, then you're a follower. Nothing wrong with that, but you may not have an athlete that breaks a world record or wins an Olympic gold medal, right? Or you open a business, and then your business eventually gets to the point where it's in excess of $1 million a year or more. Conferences. I think this is my 14th or 15th national conference in a row. Go to conferences. Continually learn. That is the key, right? I think I've kind of beaten that one to death, but it's not just the national conference, it's the state clinics. The SPD program is a major part of the NSCA. That's the State Provincial Directors program. This is where they run, and if you're not familiar, how many of you have been to a NSCA state clinic? Raise your hand. So we saw hands raised a lot more on the other questions, but not as many. No matter what state you live in, look up on the main website, who's your state director. Reach out and contact them. Find out, get involved. See if you can't be on the state advisory board. But go to those state clinics. You can be exposed to national level and international level speakers at the state level. Training seminars. Go out beyond just the NSCA. Right? I'm not here just to preach about the NSCA, even though it's my favorite organization, and I'm, here to actually present to you guys, but go out beyond it. Go into other things, Look at NASM, look at some other certifications and training that are completely separate, but make sure they're evidence-based and they have a scientific foundation behind them. Not just because somebody was an Olympic gold medalist or something, or a world champion, and then it's their way. Make sure there's science and it's evidence-based behind it. Internships are apprenticeships. A lot of programs now and facilities, like our facility, you can actually come in and do an apprenticeship. Go and learn. Find out, get your hands-on experience. Get in there, get your hands dirty. Build your resume, educational foundation, and practical experience. When I interview for GAs at our institution, they have to give me their personal training philosophy, and I don't mean personal training, their training philosophy. Like if I was to sit down with you and take you to lunch, I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Tell me what your training philosophy is. Can you tell me? Then I want to see, what educational background, what school did you go to? What kind of grades did you make? Did you win any awards? Do you show trends towards excellence? And then I'll ask you, what's your current work like now? Are you an undergraduate student? How often do you study? I want to know those things. Business experience, start at the bottom. Start as a trainer. You know why? If my trainers say to my general manager, who's not a personal trainer, well, you don't know, you've never done it. Ooh, I back him up right away. I'm like, you know what? I do. I started as a personal trainer. I know exactly where you're coming from. So start at the bottom and then seek out management and leadership roles, right? Employers look for people who have passion. And you know what? You might not get paid for it. But I remember that. I remember when I say, okay, who wants to run the boot camp this weekend? I look for the people who raise their hand right away. And I'll actually give them a 60% split. So if it's $500, they get 60% of it. Club will only take 40%. But I look for those people who have initiative. Get involved with a professional organization. Preferably you're here, look at the NSCA. Set goals and then pursue them. That's what I did. I went after them. I got knocked down, but I'd get right back up. So recap of what we talked about. Develop your professional philosophy. What is it that you want to do? Where are you going to go? Set long-term goals. I had long-term goals for my business. You know, I wanted to get our personal training program up to 300. Now my next goal is 450. Next goal is 600. When we started out, we weren't, you know, showing a profit. We showed a profit in about 13 months. Okay? So you had to invest that money and that time. Reevaluate your personal philosophy or your business philosophy, and they might be integrated like mine together, but evaluate it every year. You have to evolve to be successful. You must be able to adapt, right? Get experience. Get out there, get your hands dirty. And if you already have experience and you think you know everything, then you're levitating off the stage. I'm not levitating off the stage, and I never will. Become involved as a volunteer, start to meet people. My connections have allowed me to help other colleagues like Gary Schofield, who is our Southeast Regional Coordinator. I've known Gary now for over 15 years, one of my best friends. But he's taught me so much. And even though he's a high school strength coach and I'm a university professor, I learn from him every day. Be passionate. When I stood up here, within the first 30 seconds of me talking, could you tell that I was passionate about what I do? Absolutely. Right? And I don't drink caffeine, because if I do, I'd be up on top of the actual podium.